this video I'm taking a look at some OBX options that are available. I've previously put the Arturia OBXa up against my OB6. I've got the OB6 app here. And I've also made a comparison a couple of years ago of Oberheim style SCM Softsynths, in which some of these were included. I think I included the OBXD and the OPX. But now we've got these two newcomers. We've got the OBXa from Arturia, and we've got Obsession by Synapse Audio. So it might be interesting to take a look at the similarities and the differences. And I'll just show you how I'm recording this quickly. Let's move these off the screen. So I've got Arturia, Synapse, OPX, OBXD, and the OB6. And these are all being recorded on GarageBand. If I just come through there here, so we can see the synths are all coming through the one channel. So I'm trying my best to keep things level. As you can hear there, I've leveled things up. Pretty much as I could, really, because every time you tweak something, obviously you change the volume. So please don't have a go at me for the volumes being different. It's a nightmare to try and keep them, especially when you've got 5 on the go and you're demoing different bits and bobs. So just before we get into it, might be quite interesting to have a listen to some of the presets, just to see the sort of sounds that they're capable of. Okay, just going to randomly go through these. Not going to pick anything in particular. Let's go for some pads, shall we? Where are the pads? Here we go. It's got a really nice old school feel to it. Rainbow. Maybe a bass as well. Don't want to go through all of them. There's 4 synths here. Be here all day. Let's try that without the effects. Just take the nice big fat unison sound. Maybe one more. Let's go for a lead. So I've already done a review of this, and it's a really nice synth. It's got really nice deep sound. It sounds really sort of vintage if you want it to. It's got those lovely reverbs on it. Very nice. Let's move over to the Arturia. That's what we've got here. Let's all types. Let's go to some pads again. I'm not just picking them out at random. Nice bit of reverb in there. Profondi. Shimmer pad. The Obsession does a nice shimmer. Come on, Starsky, there's got to be some better ones in this. I know there are. That wasn't one of them. Just looking for a nice big floaty sound. Spaced Tape Angels, come on. There you go, very nice. And let's have a look at a bass on this as well. Let's have a listen to another bass. Not as impressive, are they, when you just pick them out like that? Although when I've played with the Arturia in the past, I've not had any problems with the presets. I like them. I think they sound really good and lush. But the Obsession sort of pips it to the post there. And let's have a look at the OPX as well then. A panning harp. And as I was saying about levels there, that's really loud, whereas just the standard oscillator was really quiet. Look for another pad and expand the sweep, sample and hold. Drifting strings. And then maybe a bass. It's not as easy when they're not in categories. Let's look for something that says bass. Classic bass. That's using a bit of aftertouch as well. That's got a 24 dB filter on it. Let's turn it down to a 12. So it's really holding up the OPX. It's quite an old thing, and it was like one of the very first OBX, or maybe the first OBX that was out. And actually, after playing with this, I bought a Prophet 8. I enjoyed it that much. Aging, but still with us. And then finally, a couple of presets off the OBXa. So let's look at some pads again. Complex poly. Motion strings. Nice, and this doesn't have any effects on it, by the way. I'll mention that later. A meditation pad, let's try that. Again, all nice. And just do a couple of basses. And just as I didn't have a play with the Arturia, and the reason for going through the presets is just to show you that they all do sound nice. There's none of them that sound awful or terrible or, you know, what on earth have I wasted my money on. They all sound good. But if I was scoring these, I would score the Obsession number 1, Arturia number 2, OPX number 3, and the OBXD number 4. Just from a preset perspective. Lots of people like using presets. I'm not a big preset fan, but if you rely on them, they're really important. But yeah, I think we can all agree that they all sound pretty impressive. So what about cost? The Synapse, that's the newest on the block. That's €89. That's only been out a few weeks actually. Arturia, this comes in at €199, which is pretty expensive, but it is included as part of the Arturia collection. So I think my upgrade from 6 to 7 was €99 plus an extra 49 for the OBXa. So if you've got the collection, it's really good value. You know, how many synths do you get in that? The collection's €499, but you do get in all these synths. So great value for money, but it depends if you're going to use all those synths or not, I suppose. But I still think the OBXa is on top of that 499 at the minute. It doesn't say it's new in the collection there, does it? So there's an additional cost at the minute. So keep your eye out for collection 8 or a deal. Moving over to the Sonic Projects OPX, there's various options you can get for this. I'm using the OPX Pro 2, which is the sort of most expensive. I think that comes in at 89, but there are cheaper versions. The OPX comes in at €59. It's got slightly less options. It hasn't got as much manipulation of the sort of various controls, but it's got the same sound engine. And then the cheapest is the OBXD 1.5. There's a button here, you can pay $49 if you like. It's recommended, but it's actually, the source code's available under GPL license at GitHub, and there's no restrictions, and it's free to use, it's free to download. But obviously, if you download it for free, you're not supporting the developer, so always nice to support developers of good stuff. And before I get stuck into the sounds, I'd just like to say they all have similarities and have the basics you'd expect. They've got sort of a sawtooth, a pulse, and a triangle when you've got them both off. 2 oscillators, 2 ADSR envelopes. They've all got a unison mode. But they're all configured differently with slightly different filter options, different voicing, different oscillator mixing functions. So unlike my Minimoog Softsynth shootout, I'm not expecting them all to be exactly the same or all act the same, but they should all give the OB flavour. So as we've got this up, let's start off by looking at the GUIs and the main function of each. And this is the newest, as I say, the Synapse Audio Obsession. We've got the main page here with the main oscillators. We've got the LFO here, got 2 LFOs. They've all got these Oberheim style buttons for selecting parameters, and the second page has got some effects plus a modulation matrix and this additional step LFO. And something I omitted from my Obsession review actually was that you do have fine control over these buttons here. So oscillator 1 on or off, oscillator 2 50% or full, or noise is either on or off. But actually if we come into here, look at the mod matrix and use this constant parameter, I can now change the noise volume level using this knob here. So I get fine control over it. So oscillator 1 volume, for example. Oscillator 2 volume. And we can always have a different pulse width on oscillator 2 than oscillator 1. So put that on oscillator 1 now. Obviously this isn't going to change. So yeah, you have much more fine control than the front panel shows you, but you do use up your modulation slots. But it's really handy, and it brings the controllability, the sort of mixer section, in line with the others, as well as being able to do lots of other things with it as well, because obviously you've got all these different destinations. And you've got a resizable GUI as well, as you do have with the Arturia. And Arturia, again, on the main page, same features as you'd expect. 2 oscillators with saw, pulse, or triangle. You've got a filter. This has got a 4-pole mode, as did the Obsession. Got a 4-pole mode there. 2 envelopes, LFO section, plus an additional vibrato LFO. If we go up here, we click into the sort of second page, or the effects section. You've got all these modulation routines. So you've got a modulation matrix up here. It's got loads of destinations, plus these sort of envelope stroke LFOs. So you can have these in one-shot mode. You can do all sorts of different things with them. You can do completely crackers things. Have them key triggered. You can have them loopable. You can have them poly, so they play with each separate note. Really, really flexible. Plus effects. Here you've got the effect types, and notice there we've got a multi-mode filter as well. 12, 24, 36, low pass, high pass, band pass, and 2 comb filters. And now moving on to the OPX. You'll see this is a bit more complex, and you really do need the manual to work out what all these little trim pots do. It's really, really fine control over each of the sounds. But we've got 2 oscillators here. Got the filter section and the filter here. Down here we can change it to 24 dB, and using this type here we've got high pass, band pass, a notch, and that's a mix between a low pass and the high pass, band pass, and a notch. So I'm not going to go into that in too much detail, but basically all these little things, these little trim pots, change various aspects of the sounds. That's changing either the oscillator tuning, the filter, or the envelope, and this is the amount. So it looks really complicated, and that's because you do have fine control over how the synth works. So you can change this sort of envelope slopes. You can invert the ADSR envelopes, things like that. It's also got an effects section. So you've got delay, reverb, can sync it, but in no way as complex as the Arturia, which had all this stuff, or the Obsession, which has got the delay, the reverb, and the chorus all nicely laid out on the top here. And finally, the OBXD, we've got the oscillators, as we'd expect. Again, the saw, the pulse, or the triangle. Got separate mix knobs on this, that's slightly different. The filter, we have a 24 dB mode as well. Got the 2 ADSRs, and if you're not familiar, or you weren't familiar with the OBX sort of look and styling, you should be by now. They've all got these OBX buttons and the OBX style knobs. And just to show you, here's my editor for the OB6 as well. So it just looks like one of the other soft synths, doesn't it? But it's controlling the hardware. And looking at this sort of voice variation down on the bottom right hand corner here, this is for changing the panning of each of the voices. But this sort of variation of each of the voices is something that all of them have invested quite a lot of effort in. The sound of the original being distinct oscillators, each with slightly different tuning, filter response, and envelopes, and that's what helps this sort of really big, wide unison sound that you get with your Oberheim. So if we come in here and we press unison, that's all 8 playing at the same, well, all 6 voices here. Let's put it on, well, leave it on 6, doesn't really matter. And then we add the spread. And that's your big typical Oberheim unison sound. Now this doesn't have anywhere near as much tweakability as some of the others, so we showed you a little bit on the OPX before. So here we've got the spread of the oscillator, the filter, or the envelope, and if we just play a note on this, we're in 6-note polyphony here, and we can see on the top left which of the oscillators is playing, and you can hear that this is naturally set up to have a sort of slight detuning between them. But using this spread function down here, if we put it on the oscillator, the spread is all perfectly at 0. And you can change the spread. And we can go and sort of randomize it and change it as we like. If we put that in unison, and this alters the filter as well on the so some voices are brighter, some are darker. And we've got the pan over here as well, and we've got different presets as well. And we've got different presets you can bring in. Over to the Arturia, we've got the detune up here. Put it into unison mode. Down here we've got the number of voices. Let's put it into 6 like the others were. And then if we click on this spread here, and down here we've got different spread of the LFO oscillator, the filter, the amount and the rate. So this is going into each of the different functions or parameters and changing the spread. So change the filter. Okay, huge spread on that. Let's see what happens. Take the unison off. And the filter down. We can hear there the filter's changing on different oscillators. which gives that really nice analog feel. On the pan as well. Let's put them all to the left, just to demonstrate that it does actually work. And then finally onto the Obsession. If we click on the voice, we can change the response of the voice to tons of stuff. So tuning, let's just put it on voice 1. And you can change the scale of this so it goes completely out of tune. Let's change voice 2, let's do that the other way around. Too high. So that's one broken synth, isn't it? And again, it works on the filter as well. So looking at the filter, we've put 1 down there and 2 up here. See what happens. So changing the filter response. Obviously, again, that's a broken synth. So voice 1, change that back. So you're getting nice subtle variations to all sorts of craziness. So if we put this into unison mode, bring in all the voices, and then we can go in to the second page, and this organic mode adds some slop, and the slop's quite interesting on this. If I bring in the EQ and just play it on a single note, you see it's not a constant sort of sine wave or a constant LFO, it's all over the place. Which means when you play it on more than one voice, you don't get any sort of predictability. If you look at the size of the sort of the lower harmonics, they're moving quite randomly, aren't they? Where if I put that on the Arturia, for example, with the detune on, we're getting much more predictability. This one's gone bomb, 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 bomb. Watch that. And compare that with the Obsession. Although we're getting instantly loads more detune from the Arturia. I think it's got to have it down about here, about sort of a quarter of the way to equal the detune on the Obsession. But on the Obsession, of course, you can then go in and play with each of the voices independently and make it really go out of tune. So a lot more editability there. And just to show you, because I'm showing this on 8 voice mode, it does have 16 voices, so you can do it on 16 voice mode as well. But it would be nice from my point of view if you could just move this a little bit more to make it a little bit more out of tune without having to go in and change each of them. But you can see there's not much variation in them there. I suppose that Synapse Audio have actually got an OBXa that's actually in tune and well calibrated. So you've seen how they emulate this sort of unison mode. Let's just take a look at the oscillators in a little bit more detail. We've got the, let's have a look, let's see which one we can look at first. So let's start off with the Arturia. We've got the sawtooth, a triangle when neither of them are lit, and a square. And I did notice on my Arturia versus the OB6 that the PWM on this acted strangely. in that it does that sort of weight. It doesn't move from left to right sort of consistently. And I have to admit, I did wonder if that was an error, although I thought it was a bit odd that Arturia would have got that wrong. And it turns out they haven't, because the Obsession does the same sort of thing. Just going back to the Sawtooth. Let's go through on them all quickly. Sawtooth. Let's go through them all quickly. So this is the Arturia. Let's just run through them one after the other. Arturia. Synapse has got a bit more flutiness to it. So over to the OBX. It's a little bit darker, and the OBX does have this sort of different sort of filter types or brightness. Brilliant mode, and you can see there a real little resonant peak coming in over 10 kilohertz. Nearer 20. Normal mode, really quite dark and clear. And then finally the OBXD. And again, this has got a brightness mode. Not sure why they've put that in there. Maybe it's because you just get ones that are brighter than others. So just to avoid it being affected by the envelope when you're using the cutoff. And of course you can do that similarly on the others using all those sort of trim pots. And I did show the square wave there doing something weird on the Arturia, so let's try that on the Obsession. There's a pulse, LFO sine, put it onto the pulse width of oscillator 1. Doing exactly the same thing as the Arturia was, so I'm convinced now it's something that's inherent in the actual OBX architecture. Pulse width goes from around 10% to 50% on the Arturia, 50% all the way to it's about 10 again. So the Synapse and the Arturia. Slightly different tone there. Again, the Synapse feels a bit flutier. A little bit harsher with the Arturia. What does the OPX do? Goes from 50 to really fine. And if you modulate that with the LFO as well, this one acts more like you'd expect. Going through 0, whereas the other two would start off at 60 and they'd hang round at 50, then go back up again. And for thoroughness, let's try it on the OBXD. 50%. To very thin as well. And just to note while I'm looking at the oscillators, you've got a mix on this of oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. Whereas on the others, like the Obsession, you don't have a mix, you have on or off. An oscillator 2 can be half on or off, so the LED's a bit duller. And the Arturia's got mixed knobs as well. So it's a bit more flexible, obviously, but not as true to the original. And the OPX, again, it can be oscillator 1's on or off, and oscillator 2 is half or full. So sticking with the oscillators, let's just take a look at Cross Mod, which is interesting because they all implement it in slightly different ways. The OBXa doesn't actually have Cross Mod, but the OBX did. It's a completely different tone you get by modulating 1 with 2 or 2 with 1, depending on how the oscillators are set up. On the Arturia, oscillator 1 is modulated by oscillator 2. Only listening to oscillator 1 at the minute. Cross Mod up. So this is like the OBX did it, and what I found is actually nicer to modulate oscillator 2 with oscillator 1, because oscillator 2's got much higher frequency range. So if you bring in the Obsession, which is what the Obsession does, so oscillator 2 is modulated by oscillator 1. So if we listen to oscillator 1, turn up the cross mod, doesn't do anything because oscillator 1 is the modulator. So turn up oscillator 2, and straight away you're getting those sort of nice, sort of really harsh, high pitched. So I find this a much more usable form of cross mod. Just seem to get a load more useful tones playing around with it. I mean, it can be a bit harsher. So let's do that again. So I really like the way it's been implemented on the Obsession. Bring it back to the Arturia, because these are the two new ones, so these are the most interesting to look at. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with the OBXa, the way that works. It's the same way as the OB6 works. But on the OB6 you can take oscillator 1 way up higher than 24 semitones, whereas on this we're getting 60 semitones on 2 and only 20 plus or minus 24 on 1. So play something higher up. Maybe just me being a bit mental. Both nice, but I prefer the Obsession. So let's move over to the OPX, and this has got cross mod down here with the amount as well on this trimmer. And as this is more of an OBX, it's doing it the same as the Arturia. It's modulating oscillator 1 with oscillator 2. On this you go quite high, I think it's 5 octaves, is it? But on this, I really like this cross mod trimmer down here. Sort of reminds me of the Mini Moog actually as I'm playing that. All those little harmonics and things in there. Love all that. And moving on to the OBXD, this implements it the same way as the Synapse does as well. So it's oscillator 2 modulated by oscillator 1. So cross mod up. Again, really nice that. $49 all free. I still suggest you pay the $49. So if I was scoring them on this, if I was putting them in order, it's more difficult list. I really like the way the OPX does it. I do like the implementation on the Arturia. It is like the OB6. In fact, it's better. It's got more control than the OB6. Let's just put the OB6 on. So Cross Mod, put it on VCO1. Just doesn't go anywhere near as mad as the Softsynths. But there you go, now we're getting madder. That's a little bit more like it was on the Obsession and the OBXD, isn't it? Because we can whack the frequency up of VCO1 quite a lot. Well, I don't know why it keeps on changing. And that's slight variations in the oscillators, isn't it? Listen to it. It's once in every sixth it's out of tune or changes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it has recently been calibrated as well. So the joys of VCOs. Oh, maybe I should run that calibration routine again. Playing a bit with the cross mod because it's one of the more complex functions. I don't know, sounds a little bit noisy really, that, and after playing with the OB6 as well. Now, I do like that on the Obsession. Back to the OPX. Yep, like them all. I think my least favourite's actually the Arturia. Or maybe this one actually. Okay, so putting these in order, I'm going to put the OPX and the Obsession together. Maybe just peeps it, the Obsession actually. So Obsession 1, OPX 2, and on the... I think I prefer the Arturia to the OBXD. So the Synapse is coming out on top quite a lot at the minute. So moving on to the filters now, they've all got a 4-pole and a 12-pole, or 24 and a 12 dB. There it is on the OBX. Let's have a look at the Obsession, 4-pole, 2-pole. And on the OPX, we've got a 24 dB mode down there as well. So let's take a listen to them in 12 dB first, and just to note that they all do this thing that the Oberheims do, whereby the modulation amount or the envelope amount knob affects where you can go with the cutoff frequency. So basically, if the cutoff's on full, let's turn the resonance down for now. You're not getting a completely open filter. You need to turn the envelope amount up. And they all do this. So to get it all the way closed, you need to turn the modulation amount down. But let's have a little play with resonance on full. And bring that peak to about 1K. There we go. And just get the fundamental bang on this middle line here. Let's try that with the Obsession. So comparing that with the Arturia. Almost identical. And what's interesting on this is I originally thought it was completely different, but when you go into the voices, you can change the resonance amount. So I was playing on one voice and it sounded completely different, a lot less resonant than the Arturia, and it's because you can go into each of these and change them separately. So just be warned. There's so many little things you could get wrong here because they've got so many tweakable bits to them. So Arturia, Synapse. So it sounds that sort of fluty, richer sound. The Arturia is a little bit harsher. I think that's a bit of a theme. So go to the OPX now. A lot more resonant. Put it down a bit, maybe just drop the volume a little. So here's the OPX, Synapse, Arturia. Let's have a wiggle. All very nice, and then move over finally to the OBXD. It's got a little bit of vibrato on there from somewhere, I don't know where. But this is only on, you'll notice there, 1 o'clock on the resonance. If I whack it all the way up, a lot more resonance. So if you want it to sound like any of the others, hold it down just past 12 o'clock. So just once more, OBX, then the OPX. And they do sound like they're at different volumes, but they're not. This fundamental's always on this line. Synapse. And the Arturia once more as well. And just playing them all on a lower note as well. Just to hear what that low end grunt sounds like on each of them. Bit smoother, bit less gritty than the Arturia. OPX. Similar. All quite similar, and then the OBX as well. Wouldn't pick any of them out as being dramatically different to the other actually. Let's try all these on 24 dB then. So the OBXD. So here's the OPX on 24 dB. That's got a real difference in that. That's got some energy in that bass, hasn't it? Let's try normal mode. That funny little sort of fizz along the top. Let's go nice and low on the OBXD as well on 24 dB. Nice, not as rumbly as it was on the OPX. Synapse. All very nice, goes nice and low. And the Arturia. Got a high tone, high pitch coming in there. But again, they're all much of a muchness. There's nothing that really stands out about any of them. There's nothing that's really horrifically bad or tremendously brilliant. They're all really nice, all really smooth. You know, as the years roll on, the competition on these sort of gets really, really much more intense, and they all get better and better. So we do have other options on filters, as I said earlier on the Arturia. If you go into the effects, we've got multi-mode filter here. So you've got a band pass and a high pass as well. Low pass and high pass with 12, 24 and 36 dB modes. Quite nice, that, isn't it? All very weird. On the Obsession, you've got a band pass mode as well. That can be 4-pole or 2-pole. OPX, I think I mentioned this earlier, how flexible this is. You've got the low pass mode, which is when this mixes all the way to the left, all the way to the right. On this trimmer, you've got high pass, got band pass, and a notch. I do like a notch. And you can blend between them. So a little bit in the style of an SCM filter, but really, really flexible. Really nice things you can do with that. And then finally, again, some baby brother, we've got the OPX. Let's put it on a more than one voice. Got band pass mode. Whoops. Turn the volume down. At least I figured out where that modulation was coming through on the filter earlier. The filter modulation's on, which is making it slightly wobbly. Band pass. So 12 or 24 dB. And you've got a high quality mode on this as well. The OBXD also got a multi-mode. It's a bit like an SCM filter, this. So all the way to the left, this is low pass, move to here, gradually go to the notch, and through the notch up to a high pass, or you can have band pass there as well. So if we just play a chord, let's put the cut off about halfway. You can see there on the frequency analysis that it's dropping out those mid frequencies. Lovely notch, and then move that up to a high pass. Or band pass. So exactly the same as the SCM style filter on the OB6. So again, really flexible. I know it's the little brother I keep on describing it as, but you know, it's got a lot going for it, this OBXD. Sound-wise, Synapse has it. Ease of use, Synapse has it. Flexibility, Arturia has it. The OPX is just let down a bit by its interface because it's a bit niggly. So next up, I thought, let's just take a look at sort of the general overall tone of them and how you make a sound. So I've just taken that sort of sawtooth, played around with it a bit. Just a single sawtooth and added some effects. So just taking the effects off for now. I've added a bit of stereo spread, a little bit of sloppiness going on. All very nice, and you notice you can have your effects in parallel or in series. I've got them in parallel there. And I've made something very similar on the Obsession. Just have to check if it's using the right synth then. The trick this has got up its sleeve on the effect is this shimmer algorithm. Absolutely gorgeous, that, isn't it? I don't know why more synths don't have a shimmer algorithm on them, because that's great. And then moving on to the OPX, similar sound again. Doesn't have a dedicated chorus, but this spread sort of does that for you. So So again, all really nice widening effect here, damping, you know, nowhere near as flexible though, is it? And then obviously with this not having any effects, it's not flexible at all on them. So from an effects perspective, the Arturia wins. I think it's got more effects and it's more flexible. The Synapse, really like that reverb. I think that's a really clever idea. It's easier to use, but less flexible. And the OPX is decent enough. It's not really, and you know, I wouldn't really call them effects, just the sort of little add-ons really, aren't they? So from this perspective, Arturia wins this round, but with an honourable mention to that Synapse shimmer. You know, amazing little addition. So in conclusion, the Synapse Obsession has won more rounds than any other. It's scored more points. It wins. There's not a whole huge amount in it, but you know, if you haven't got the Arturia V collection and you want to buy one of these, without a doubt it'd be the Synapse. It's got a really nice sound and it's only €89, whereas the Arturia, if you don't have the V collection, it's €200. So it's quite a step. That, you know, that's almost buying some sort of bit of hardware territory, that is. OBXD, absolutely fantastic for the price. Or, well, because you can buy it for nothing. Well, you can get it for nothing. Can't grumble with that, you know. And obviously, you've got effects in your door, so whether that's an issue to you or not, you know, still got that really nice, flexible SEM style filter. OPX, you know, I've got a real fondness for the OPX. It fights well above its weight. It's got all these different sort of additions and stuff. It's just a bit of a shame that the GUI these days, although it's resizable, I think there's 3 different sizes you can get. I think this is the mid size. You just install whichever size you want, so it's not as flexible as these where you can just go in and change them. You do need the manual because all this is a bit difficult to understand when you first get your hands on it, and if you haven't used it for a while, you've got to go back and sort of have a little refresher course. So because it's sticking so closely to the OBX look and feel, it does sort of makes it a bit more difficult to use, but there's tons of stuff in there. If that's your only synth, that's a good synth to be your only synth. But as an Oberheim Softsynth, I'm declaring the Synapse the winner on this, which it was with the Mini Moog as well. And I do like the look of it more than I like the Arturia, actually. The Arturia is that funny sort of turquoise. It's not even OB blue, and it's a little bit hard to look at, to be honest. If I move it onto my other screen, the lines are a lot closer together, and it's just a bit harder to read. I mean, I'm talking sort of minor imperfections here. This just looks nicer and easier to use. But wouldn't be upset if the Arturia was the only one I had, or if the OPX was the only one I had, or if the OBXD was the only one I had. They're all really nice. You can't go wrong with any of them, but my winner is the Synapse. Well, I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere. A bit of fun for me. And if you did enjoy that, maybe think about subscribing if you haven't done so already. And if you do enjoy programming your synths, maybe take a look at my Patreon page. I've got over 6 hours worth of tutorials there on how to program any synth, taking the basics of subtractive synthesis, breaking it down little bit by little bit, so you can pick up anything, understand how it works, and start programming your own sounds rather than relying on presets. Nothing wrong with presets, they're great for ideas, but sometimes it's nice to be able to get what you've got in your head onto a track without going through 3,000 different variations of it. Anyway, see you next time.